what is the case against BBC India? IT action in UPA airs also. Top focus and to the point this evening, day 2 of Crackdown on BBC India. Good evening, viewers. You're watching To The Point. I'm Preeti Choudhry. Over the course of the last 24 hours, we've touched upon many questions. Number one, is the timing of these raids suspect? Today, as the raids continue for day 2, there are 2 questions we are going to touch upon. Number one, what are the charges of the Income Tax Department on BBC India? They did issue a press release. Somewhere down the line, what we could make out is that the BBC India is charged with tax evasion. We're going to put out the exact graphic of what was said by the Income Tax Department in terms of why they initiated action in terms of a survey here on BBC India. We're going to just put that out in just about 10 seconds. Also, what we are going to talk about is, has it just happened in the rule of the current incumbent government? Because one does, if you look at it journalistically and you look at the kind of chronology that has gone on, where there have been certain media houses that have published or put together a report which has been unflattering to the incumbent government, and within weeks or months they've been raided by none else but the Income Tax Department. So, you know, for a lot of us, just in terms of journalistic inquisition, you would look back and say, the timing is suspect. But also, if you look deeper, it's really not that it's happened in the time of just this current government. It's happened before, viewers. It's happened in the time of the UPA as well. So let's go back to what we were talking about in terms of what are the charges by the Income Tax Department. What does the IT department mean when it says that the BBC India has evaded tax? Let's put those graphics out right now where we talk about the charges of the IT department against BBC India. And I'm going to bring in my colleague Munish Pandey, who's joining me in the studio, and he's going to break it down. He's followed the case of the Income Tax Department on BBC India. We've tried to decode what this charge really is. And Munish, have you been able to identify what is it that the IT department is charging the BBC India with in terms of which is backing up with the survey that it's conducting on day 2?
Well, Preeti, as far as the Income Tax Department is concerned, remember, so far the IT department has not released any official statement as on what charges they are doing this survey against the BBC or the related entities. Now, as far as the sources within the IT department are concerned, what they have told us is that this is regarding the transfer pricing. And in last 2 years, several notices were sent to BBC, their officials, but they decided not to respond, and that is when the IT official decided to conduct a survey. Now, during the survey, what we have been given to understand is that they are going through several financial documents, several materials which were inside the office, and still the survey is still on at the BBC office in Delhi. And after going through all the documents, all the details, if there is a suspicion, then a case will be lodged against BBC.
All right. Okay. So right now we can't really identify a particular charge that BBC India has been charged with.
Yeah, Preeti, as far as the IT department is concerned, they are saying that there is a suspicion. And based on suspicion, they were sending notices to BBC and their officials from last 2 years. But because they were not responding, they decided to just.
So these notices were being sent for the last 2 years, and the IT department claims that BBC India was not responding. So, you know, many would suggest, then how is timing suspect in all of this? Because the BBC documentary, viewers, was only released 2 or 3 weeks, one would suggest, maybe 3 weeks ago, because there was word indication. So the notices, they say, have been going for 2 years, but they've acted now is again, because if one person says, or one side says that, okay, you've been sending notices for 2 years, why is timing suspect? Then the other side will say, you have been sending notices for 2 years, why act now? You could have acted earlier. But let's go to the other aspect of the story, and that aspect is, has it happened for the first time, just under the BJP government? Because a lot of people out there are looking at it, okay, the BBC has been critical of the BJP government. That's why the crackdown. But not quite, viewers. It's happened before. And it's happened on multiple occasions. Let's take you back in terms of the UPA era. And let's play those graphics there of the UPA era when the IT department cracked down on the BBC India headquarters. Munish, how many times has it happened before and what were the charges then?
Yeah, Preeti, this becomes a very important question because remember, after the survey, the action by the Income Tax Department, there were several opposition leaders who gave a statement saying that it's a shameful act by the IT department, it is a revenge politics. But as far as the legality of the case is concerned and whether there was any action by the IT department when UPA was in power, what I have gathered through my research and through several court documents, right from the year 2002 to 2003, 2004, that was the assessment year. Now, in those 2 years, there were several notices sent to the BBC office saying that they are not paying the taxes as per the norms of Indian law. Now, not only those 2 years, but also assessment year 2006 to 7, 2007 to 8, and 2008 to 9. Which means that in 3 years, there were several notices sent to BBC and their officials claiming that they are not paying taxes as far as the royalty is concerned, the transfer pricing is concerned, and several other aspects of the tax department and their law.
All right, so 4 times during the UPA era. But Manish, I'll take you back to the charge which was laid by the Income Tax Department in the year 2002-2003. Has the charge remained the same in the year 2023? Is it the same charge which is being investigated?
We can say it's the same charge because if we talk about 2002 and 2003, it was also about transfer of pricing. And now what we have been given to understand by the IT officials that again the survey is being conducted on the charges that the transfer pricing is something which they are suspecting at this point of time, and that is why they were sending several notices to BBC and their officials. Now, even during this survey, not only they will be looking at the pricing, transfer of pricing, but also at several aspects because now they will be having a lot of data, lot of documents, lot of financial documents and transactions detail between BBC World and BBC and different entities of BBC, and maybe in coming days we can see that the IT department may have a major crackdown against BBC.
What's happening with all those cases which were filed in 2002, then those 4 other cases which, subsequently under the UPA years? What's come of them?
Preeti, most of the cases, there are more than 5 petitions which were filed by the BBC claiming, and it was against the notices which were sent by the Income Tax Department. All the time, BBC challenged those notices before the court, and so far, most of the cases are still pending before the concerned courts. There have been not a definite order in favor of BBC or in favor of Income Tax Department in most of the cases.
Are we going to see this pan out in a similar fashion? It's anybody's guess.
Yeah, it is a legal case, so it is going to take several years.
Right, okay. So it's anybody's guess. I appreciate Munish for joining us. For all of you, who were a little confused in what the case about, I'm sure, or has it happened before or not happened before, I hope that's cleared your mind there. But there's a political aspect to all of this as well. And a lot of it has to do with the optics. Because yes, just about 2 weeks ago, there was a documentary by BBC on the Prime Minister Modi. The BJP says that the PM was exonerated by the Supreme Court and that documentary was not as per facts and it was a hit job or propaganda. Just yesterday, you had the BJP spokesperson who came out and called the BBC a bakwas corporation, a brushed bakwas corporation. In the morning, you had the Home Minister who said that the BBC was following a political agenda. So the optics of it all does make a few, many would suggest, some would say a lot, question the timing of it all. Listen into this report and we cut across to our political guests.
Over 24 hours and counting. The searches at BBC's 3 offices in India continues. From Delhi to Mumbai, Income tax officers have been conducting searches in the BBC's offices since Tuesday morning over alleged tax irregularities by the British broadcaster.
The tax authorities will come out with a statement. In the statement, they will point towards all those things that they have as proof against the BBC. IT department is maintaining that they have proof that BBC has done financial fraud, which is the reason why they are inside the building for the second day.
A survey is still going on, and sources say that the assessment could go on for some time, after which it will be decided whether a case to be made and what case to be made under what sections of the Income Tax Act against BBC and its subsidiary organizations.
The company has asked its India employees to be ready for questioning and cooperate in the ongoing probe. They have also reassured employees that their personal tax records will not be scrutinized. But how is the world reacting to this survey of BBC offices? The UK and US governments have taken note of the searches but have not offered any endorsement or condemnation. Meanwhile, the political showdown over the IT department searches continues as the opposition accused the Modi government of targeting BBC after the Modi documentary.
I don't believe this, that because BBC is doing something against of this government, and that's why just next day they started their operation like this. This is very unfortunate, and this is a political vendetta. BJP is running the government through this vendetta only.
BBC जैसी जो क्रेडिबल एजेंसी है, न्यूज एजेंसी है, उस पे छापा मारते हो, उस पे रेड करते हो, तो मैसेज क्या जाता है बाहर? दूसरी तरफ से गरीबों के घर डेमोलिश कर रहे हो, तो उसका मैसेज क्या जाता है बाहर? उसका मैसेज बहुत खराब जाता है कि जो हिंदुस्तान है वो आगे जाने के बजाय पीछे जा रहा है.
The BJP meanwhile has dismissed the opposition's attacks, deeming the tax evasion charges against BBC serious.
वृत्तवाहिनी है कि जिसका रेपुटेशन काफ़ी बहुत बड़ा है और उनके दफ्तर के ऊपर आज एनफोर्समेंट ने विजिट की. ये बहुत गंभीर बात है. इस देश के लोगों को भी एक मैसेज इस ज़रिए देने की कोशिश की गई है.
Sources have informed India Today that the searches may continue for 3 days in all, and then all eyes will be on the IT officers as the department will have to explain exactly what prompted these searches and what was found. With Aishwarya Paliwal and Divyesh Singh, Bureau Report, India Today.
All right, viewers, now that we've spoken about what is the nature of the charges, or seemingly the nature of the charges, because as we just told you, it's not quite clear, but we've also told you not the first time. It's happened 4 times during the UPA rule as well. Let's now go to the political face-off of this evening. Joining me is Sardar R.P. Singh, spokesperson Bharatiya Janata Party, Mahima Singh, spokesperson Congress. Mahima Singh, I'll begin with you. You know, one aspect of timing and all, let's put that aside, but in terms of the nature of the charges, what seemingly seem to, that what we're looking at, the raids in 2002, subsequently in 2006, 2008, 4 times during the UPA era, it's practically the same. Tax evasion seemingly is what the BBC was being probed by the IT department 4 times over during your governance, and the same now with the BJP.
Good evening, Preeti, and good evening all. You ask that is it for the first time whether this is happening. I'll tell you what is for the first time, Preeti. It is for the first time that India is at the lowest of the lows in terms of press freedom index. We are at a 150th rank out of 180 countries now. This was 2022. Let's see where we will fall down to in 2023 owing to the BJP's actions. Because what the BJP is earning our country is some bad press. In the very year when we are boasting that we are hosting the G20, what the BJP is doing is screaming loud, to the whole world about our actions, what we really do. And BBC is not solitary. We have seen what has happened to Amnesty International after Pegasus. We have seen an Oxfam, being ousted out of India. We have seen the raids on Dainik Bhaskar. We have seen raids on NewsClick very recently. And so, hence, our leader, Shri Pawan Khera, today has remarked that although India is the mother of democracy, but the PM is the father of hypocrisy. So it is for the BJP to answer that what has led, India at the lowest of the lows in terms of press freedom index today, where we stand at a 150 out of 180 countries. Below us is only countries like Russia, Bangladesh, Pakistan, such countries which we count ourselves ahead of. And I'll tell you what drives BJP's intention here. BJP wants to, project to its voters that India is in a constant state of virtual war, where they actually, the constant victories are being accomplished by changing names or from the Mughal era. They like a revenge act being played out on the voters of the BJP.
I'll come back to you. I'm going to bring in, you've made certain charges, but I'm going to come back to you and maybe you can answer the question then. What is the difference of the charge? Because it happened exactly during your UPA era as well, and not just, ma'am, not just the action taken by the IT department, but also at least with what we've been able to understand, twice over, where your government did try to initiate a ban on the BBC as well. But we'll come back to that. I want to bring in Sardar RP Singh into this conversation. Sardar RP Singh, just as journalistic inquest, one would look at and say, the timing is suspect. We'll put out the graphics for you. We just played them out a short while ago. Dainik Bhaskar carries out a report during COVID times where it says it's unearthed mass graves with what was going down in Uttar Pradesh. Exactly a month after that, the IT department comes knocking. After that, there was a number of other organizations. We are playing them out one by one. Each of them seemingly played an unflattering report, published a story or played it out, and was, in a month or two, was at the end of IT department action. So, sir, one would say timing is suspect because in this case, 2 years ago, the IT department sent notices to the BBC. But they seem to only act 2 weeks after a documentary by the BBC is played, which is unflattering to the incumbent Prime Minister.
Thank you, Preeti. First, let me make a small comment about the spokesperson of the Congress party. I don't expect much from the dynastic party, the spokesperson of the dynastic party, what he said. And then there's a track record which you probably are saying that you'll tell about that in the second part of this show. What they did, I was part of Indian Express when they banned Indian Express just for asking questions and asking the questions on Bofors, which was part of the questions which were asked by their then finance Mr. VP Singh also. And then the way the complete unit was crippled and the way that people were kidnapped and the way the assets were thrown on the journalists, way the heads were knocked of various journalists. So I was part of that complete that event which happened during 87 October till 88 March for 6 months. But that point aside, let's understand, I mean, you yourself said that notices were being served. There are 8 notices being served to BBC, ongoingly notices being served. But if you don't answer the notices, the only option is that the agencies will come to your office and say, okay, you are not coming to us, we'll come to you and check the records. Well, why shall we try to link the two? And then why shall you try to say that, oh, because they have done some story.
I'll tell you why we should.
Can you come? Give me another 30 seconds.
Why we should as... Okay, make your point.
Another 30 seconds. Another 30 seconds.
Please,
another 30 seconds. Yeah. So, issue is, why link the two? And then it's not the first time that BBC have reported all such sort of fabricated false reports and then also apologized. I mean, you want me to tell you, I mean, there's a Ethiopia when 2010 Live Aid and the Band Aid Trust, they were running charities. They said this money is being used bungled for arms and weapons. And later on, the BBC has to take back the report. Till recently in 2022, in September, for the Trump, also they issued some statement, then they had to withdraw back the statement. I mean, it's ongoing. I have a complete list of some 26 such apologies which BBC has given at various times to various countries or to various heads, country heads or to various NGOs. I mean, that's how the track record of BBC is. But that point aside, I mean, they can keep doing it, and there are questions being raised on the funding of the BBC also now today. How they is being funded by certain companies in China, and how things are happening there, and there is inquiry already initiated
I'll tell you, sir,
their government on this subject also.
But Mr. Singh,
that point aside.
Okay, but Mr. Singh, it doesn't quite help the BJP, especially any spokesperson who will come and say there might be not 26 like you pointed out, there might be 46 times where the BBC has bungled a report or apologized. But the fact that you bring it up somewhere down the line, it seems as a justification of the crackdown, which makes us ask again that is this vendetta? But I'll come back to the question that you asked. I'll come back to the question that you asked where you said 8 notices have gone, and why, hear me out sir, that 8 notices have gone. So why are we, reading so much into it? The BBC didn't respond and they had to come back and check. Well, the fact is, sir, the last notice which went, as per our records, allegedly was sent over 6 months ago. So then, for 6 months you don't take any action, and then you take action 2 weeks after a documentary which is unflattering to the Prime Minister's aired. So that's where at least a journalistic question comes into being. But Mahima Singh, the point I want to make is it seems that, journalists, free press is utopian, and we're always collateral to politics, because yes, it did happen in your time, not just an IT crackdown, but also initiations of ban, where the BBC here, I'm just using it as a metaphor, is concerned. Forget about what happened during emergency.
Preeti, what happened during our time, I think now we are 8 years into the BJP rule, and they're sitting here with a heavy majority. You often say that 2 bads do not make a right. Maybe some actions may have been out of the place, but I think many of them were very much in place. But as I said earlier, I will repeat, we have never been at this rank world over in terms of World Press Freedom Index. We are at a 150th position out of 180 today. We are being looked down at the...
Sir, I'll come to you. Let her finish. Go ahead, ma'am. Make your point.
We are being looked down at as a democracy by the world in terms of world press freedom. We have just seen the release of Siddique Kappan, and many of his like are sitting behind the bars still. This amount of arrests of journalists, indigenous journalists, have never happened, Preeti. You can please point out if I'm wrong. It has never happened. The amount of journalist arrests, the amount of raids on media houses, the fall in the index in press freedom. I think these are all firsts.
Okay, Sardar RP saying, let's just say for the sake of what you're, initiating, or even with the examples, especially the emergency, the Congress was way worse than you. But the Congress was voted out for exactly those reasons, sir. The Congress is not in power. So to constantly bring in that you did so, they're not in power. They were booted out and you've come back with the heaviest mandate, and hopefully one would think you'd be different than the Congress. You're not.
And I must add here, I'm
not quoting any...
They're functioning with a China-like mentality.
Madam, let's not heckle. RP Singh, please answer, and then I'm going to close the debate. Go ahead, sir.
Well, I'm not quoting what Nehru did by tinkering with the freedom of press and freedom of liberty of the people's expression. I'm not talking about Indira Gandhi's emergency. I'm not talking about Rajiv Gandhi's those postal bill and then what they did clamping on Indian Express as a group. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about if there is some illegal... No. If there is some illegality being done by any company for that regard, any corporation for that regard, they have to be clean. They have to come clean on it and then still wait for some time. Probably tomorrow morning the income tax will give you all details of what all has happened. Let's wait till that time. Why?
What happened at National Herald? What happened at National Herald?
Okay.
You want to know from the BJP what happened with the National Herald? What is happening with all that?
You swindled and bungled. You swindled and bungled. You swindled and bungled. You are out of there.
RP Singh and Mahima Singh, I appreciate you both for joining us. Let's just file out of this debate. Thank you there. Ultimately, I would reckon we'll just leave it with that free press has usually been sacrificed at the altar of politics. It happened during the time of the UPA, and now we are not saying it's happened. But yes, we are going to question that the timing is suspect. And we'll keep letting you know what the case is all about, because it's day 2 of the survey that is being conducted by the IT department on BJP India headquarters. What comes off tomorrow, trust us to get you an unbiased view of the same. A quick break. Up next is Shivarur.
cosas se van a poner muy feas. Y yo no soy de quedarme quieta. Soy más bien de liarme a tiros. Jarana, entonces. Jarana.
If you haven't had enough of Money Heist, then get set for Berlin. The teaser of Berlin, a spin-off of Money Heist, has been released and it reintroduces us to the character Berlin, which is played by Pedro Alonso as he gears up for an adventure. The upcoming series is a prequel and explores what happened to the titular character before he joined forces with the professor for a grand robbery. The first